royalties otherwise.
This is Eric with Really Clean Water Technologies. I'm doing a walkthrough for a client home. We've got a supply line here where that is municipally treated city water. That should be tested for water pressure regularly. They have a pressure regulator here, which is holding the pressure back currently at about 60 psi. That should not exceed 70 psi. We're looking at a House Nano Filtration System with a 1 pre-filter for chloramines, reducing chloramines and sediment down to 3 microns. Behind that we have a calcite filter remineralizing the water to neutralize the pH from the nanomembranes. So we have 2 nanomembranes here and 1 big blue carbon GAC filter. This pre-filter goes in front of that filter, and this red line here is used to test the chlorine coming out of this filter. Ideally that should be 0 parts per million using an OTO chlorine test. If there's yellow, that indicates chlorine. This line here is coming after this filter. That again should be clear, indicating that there is no chlorine present in the water. When this machine is on and running, these gauges will show flow. Currently the system is off and not producing water. Looking at the runtime on this thing will tell us how many hours it's run since it was last looked at. We have a part per million TDS count telling us what the product water was when it shut off. And the tank full simply means that this bladder tank over here is full of water at a high enough pressure that the contact points in this pressure switch have not closed together. If we want to manually run this, we can press a manual button. The RO instantly opens up a solenoid back here. That solenoid creates water flow, and we can see that the wastewater is starting to flow water to drain. This gives the membrane and the pump time to flush a little bit of water through them before the pump kicks on in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As the pump is now running, we can see very quickly the TDS starts at 414 parts per million, coming out of its 179 and dropping. The longer this machine runs, the lower that TDS gets. So on its last run when it shut off, it got down to 27 parts per million. Things that need to be monitored is the pressure in and pressure out. If the pressure out on the pre-filter is less than 38 psi, the computer will actually shut the RO down and say low feed pressure, and it will create an alarm. The product water should be anywhere between 1.5 and 2.5 gallons per minute. Wastewater, we should track it about 1 to 1. So wherever this one is, we should have that one about the same. The recycle water is fine anywhere between 3 to 4, and the system pressure should be around 100 to 120 psi. Visually inspect, no leaks. Visually inspect, there's no leaks. And if for some reason there was an issue, the system has a 3-way bypass. So this is the supply line coming in. If I turn the supply line off, the RO will sound an alarm saying low pressure. There it is. So now we've got a low pressure event. It's going to time itself out and turn itself back on. So that's a safety mechanism to protect the pump from burning itself up if the water were to cease. So turn the water back on. If there was no water coming out of this machine and you needed water, this valve here is a bypass. It should normally be closed. If you open this valve up, you get untreated water into the house to flush toilets and so on, but it's not going to be good water. That's just in case of an emergency and you need water. So this is the shut off for the unit. This is where it would shut off if there was a leak coming into the RO. This other valve here is the shut off going from the RO into the house if for whatever reason that needed to be shut off. Below that is a leak detector from Moen. When it's in its green vertical position, that's meaning the water is on. If you ever have no water in the house and that green line is sideways, it means that it's off. So if that becomes an issue, you can physically push that in and turn it to overcome it. Otherwise, that will keep the water off to your home in order to prevent a leak or a flood. It's actively looking for protecting your house from leaks and floods. So now we've got it back to runtime. It's finishing its manual run. We got 57 parts per million. It's at about 85% rejection ratio. And we're looking anywhere between 85 to 90% is ideal. If it gets below or above 90, that's even better. But everything is currently running in a state which looks perfect. It is July of 2022. The nano membranes were just replaced. The system is short of 3 years old, and this one filter was added today, and this big blue filter was changed last week. This calcite filter has not been changed since October of 21 and will need to be monitored for pH, and that's simply done inside the house at the kitchen sink with a pH test kit for monitoring water pH. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching. Again, Eric with Really Clean Water Technologies.